Jesus gives one clear sign that triggers an urgent command. When you see it, drop everything and flee. Mark describes that sign as the Abomination of Desolation standing where it does not belong. Luke explains the same sign as Jerusalem surrounded by armies. Both point to the same moment of judgment on the city. That moment opens a window for escape, then leads into a period of foreign control over Jerusalem that carries a God-set expiration date. When that period ends, the text moves straight into the most severe distress the world has ever seen. Good day, Grace Keepers. My name is Joe, and this is Daily Dose of God. Welcome. All right, pull up a chair. It's time to get to work. We're going to read Mark 13:14 through 23, and Luke 21:20 through 24. When you see the abomination that causes desolation, standing where it does not belong, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the roof of their house go down or enter the house to take anything out. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that this will not take place in winter, because those will be days of distress, unequaled from the beginning, when God created the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If the Lord had not cut short those days, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, whom he has chosen, he has shortened them. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "Look, there he is," do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So be on your guard. I have told you everything ahead of time. When you see Jerusalem being surrounded by armies, you will know that its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those in the city get out, and let those in the country not enter the city. For this is the time of punishment, in fulfillment of all that has been written. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. There will be great distress in the land, and wrath against this people. They will fall by the sword and will be taken as prisoners to all the nations. Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. These bits of scripture record the same warning from Jesus, but they describe the trigger sign in two very different ways. That difference is where the clarity and the tension lives. Both passages give the same urgent command. When you see the sign, drop everything and run. Mark says, if you're on the roof, don't go back inside for anything. If you're in the field, don't turn around for your cloak. Luke says the same thing with slightly different wording. Get out of the city, and don't go into the city if you're outside of it. Both passages highlight how brutal these days will be for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Both warn that in the middle of the chaos, people will stand up and say, "Here is the Messiah," or "There he is." And Jesus tells his followers not to believe it or follow them. The core message is identical. The sign means judgment on Jerusalem has arrived. Escape is still possible for a short window, and false claims will try to pull people back into the danger. The contrast is in how each gospel describes the sign itself. Mark keeps Jesus' original words. When you see the abomination that causes desolation standing where it does not belong, let the reader understand. That phrase comes straight from Daniel and would have sounded like prophetic code to a Jewish audience. Luke, writing for readers who wouldn't automatically catch the Daniel reference, translates it into plain language anyone could recognize. When you see Jerusalem being surrounded by armies, you'll know that its desolation is near. Same moment, same command to run. One version stays mysterious and apocalyptic. The other makes it concrete and military. This is where two main readings of the passage emerge, and both have strong support in the text. Now, if you remember back at the beginning of the week, I said that I was struggling with this whole timeline thing, and here is where we're going to touch on it a little bit. One reading sees these verses as primarily describing the destruction of Jerusalem by Rome in AD 70. In this view, the Abomination of Desolation was the Roman armies surrounding the city and then desecrating the temple. Luke's description of armies, people falling by the sword, being taken captive to all nations, and Jerusalem being trampled by Gentiles, matches exactly what happened. The command to flee makes practical sense for believers living at that time. Jesus' statement that this generation will not pass away until all these things take place points to something that would happen within the lifetime of the people hearing him. The days of vengeance and fulfillment of all that has been written language fits God bringing judgment on Israel for rejecting the Messiah, just as the prophets had warned for centuries. The other reading, and the one that I was raised on, sees these verses pointing primarily to the final tribulation right before Jesus returns. In this view, the language of days of distress unequaled from the beginning, when God created the world, until now and never to be equaled again, is too extreme to be limited to AD 70. The warning about false messiahs and false prophets performing signs and wonders to deceive even the elect fits the end times deception Jesus describes in other places. Luke's phrase, Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled, is seen as describing a long period that began in AD 70, but ends with a future climax, when Gentile control over Jerusalem concludes and the final tribulation begins. It's good to listen to what other people have to say. Now, I'm not saying that I've changed my mind about which answer or which description is the correct one, but what I'd really love is to hear your arguments for either or down in the comments. Maybe it'll help me learn which side I'm supposed to land on here. Or maybe it'll remain a mystery for the rest of my life. I'm okay with that too. But a lot of people who hold this view see AD 70 as a partial or preview fulfillment, while the full weight of the apocalyptic language in Mark points to a greater event still ahead. The text really does contain language that pulls in both directions at once. Jesus was answering questions about both the destruction of the temple and the end of the age in one long answer. So the near and far overlap. That overlap is why sincere Bible students land in different places on these verses. What both readings agree on is the heart of what Jesus is doing here. He's giving his people advance notice so they can escape the coming judgment. Whether you understand the main fulfillment as past or future, the practical command is the same. When you see the signs, don't hesitate. Do not get attached to your stuff. And don't be fooled by false saviors rising in the chaos. God is showing mercy even while judgment falls. He tells his people ahead of time so the elect can be protected. Mark and Luke are recording the same conversation on the Mount of Olives, yet each gospel highlights a different angle. Mark keeps the Daniel language, so the warning feels like coded prophecy and demands careful attention. Luke turns that code into clear military language, so no reader misses the practical signal. Together, they give the same timeline, a visible sign on the ground, a short window to escape, then a long period of Gentile control over Jerusalem that ends with unequaled distress. This matches the pattern God uses throughout Scripture. He always places a tangible warning before judgment falls. He gives us every chance. The command to flee is that warning made physical. The false Messiah warning is the spiritual protection that goes with it. When the sign appears, the pressure to believe lies will be intense. But Jesus has already told all of us exactly what to do and what to reject. The warning is practical for any generation that sees the sign. When the trigger appears, hesitation costs everything. Attachment to possessions or normal life can keep people in the danger zone. At the same time, the chaos will create massive pressure to accept anyone who claims to have all the answers. Jesus says, don't believe it. The protection is simple. Recognize the sign, move immediately, and refuse every false claim, no matter how convincing the signs and wonders are. Jesus gives the sign, the escape plan, and the deception warning in advance. Mark and Luke together show us the same event from two different angles, so we can see both the mystery and the reality. The command is pretty clear. When you see it, run. Don't look back. Don't follow false saviors. The times of the Gentiles has an end set by God, and until then, we stay awake. Tomorrow we move into the cosmic signs that follow this event: the sun, moon, and stars shaken, and the Son of Man coming in power. Thank you all so much for being here. God bless you and yours, and I can't wait to see you here tomorrow for another study. Have a great day, folks.